Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for being here today. We are having folks join us in for this webinar, and on behalf of Excelencia in Education, I welcome you to Cultivating What Works, a conversation with leaders committed to Latino student success. Again, we have folks coming in, so we're welcoming you. Thank you all for joining us today. We're looking forward to having a very robust conversation, so we're going to jump right in. And our colleagues will join us as they can. So if we'll go ahead and move along to the next slide, I'd like to go ahead and introduce the Excelencia team that's on the webinar today. Start with myself. My name is Adriana Rodriguez, Vice President for Institutional Programs, and I am welcoming you and will be moderating today's conversation. Our institutional practices managers, Cynthia Sanchez and Aaron McCowie, are here to support as well, and they are supporting the webinar through our Q&A, our chat, and will appear in some of the conversation. Ashanti Calendar is our institutional programs coordinator, and she will be answering your technical questions via our examples email or also in the chat. So now that we've introduced ourselves a little bit, we want to know who's joining us today. We've turned on chat, so we invite you all to share the city and state that you are joining from in the chat, and we can get some community energy going for this great conversation. And we really appreciate you joining the chat since we can't see you all the Zoom squares. So again, bienvenidos and welcome, and we look forward to talking with you all in the chat and Q&A. But right now, Cynthia is going to give us some housekeeping reminders about how you can do that.
Yeah, hi everyone. So just a quick few housekeeping items. This is being recorded. We will be sharing this recording to all of you after, both on our website and YouTube, so be on the lookout for that. If you have any technical issues, you can always use the chat and one of our team members will reach out to you, or you can email us at examples@excelencia.org. And then you can also use the Q&A feature for any questions that you have about the panelists, and we'll have time to discuss those later in the session. And then if for any reason you have colleagues who are like, hey, I'm having issues logging in, have them email us and we'll be sure to share this recording with them. It might be due to capacity limits. And then finally, please join the conversation on social media. We have a couple hashtags that we like to use. Those are listed down below in the PowerPoint, so definitely use those to stay connected with others in this webinar. And then now I'll turn it over to Adriana, who is our VP.
Thank you, Cynthia, for those reminders. And again, we'll be posting some of that information in the chat as we go along. Glad to have you all here. And thank you for all the introductions, just seeing a robust chat energy happening. I won't be able to see it, but look forward to being able to jump in a second to say hello to you all. One thing that I hope will happen for today's conversation is that you all will not only be informed, but also inspired by this work. We've learned about the good work of these programs that we're going to meet today, and we found these programs through examples of Excelencia. And for those of you who are not familiar with Excelencia and our evidence-based practices work, I'm going to share a little bit so our newcomers can get familiar. For 19 years, Excelencia has been working with higher education leaders and communities to accelerate Latino student success and assure America's future. We've galvanized those committed to this cause who are interested in a student-centered perspective to build campus communities to be places where Latino students and all students can thrive. Our evidence-based practices portfolio is an important part of our work as for those who are ready to act. It's about bringing positive attention to the people and the programs that are having these positive impacts on Latino students. These programs that we'll talk to today and those in this effort are key because they work directly with students. These are the programs that are having a significant impact on students, not just in their academic outcomes, but in many other ways so that they can be successful at their institutions and beyond. Today's program leaders joined our community of common cause by answering a national call that furthers our collective work to identify and promote what's working for Latino students in higher education. Excelencia has aggregated this information in our Growing What Works database, that we hope has become a resource for all of you and other stakeholders to know what is happening across the country that's making a difference, and so that others can invest in this work, that others can replicate this work and bring this work to scale. We're so glad that we have 4 programs here today at the various academic levels to share their perspectives, as well as a representative from a community-based organization. This gives us the opportunity to celebrate their work once again, as these are the 4 examples of Excelencia from our 2022 cycle. So let's, without further ado, meet them all. And I will start off with the associate level. There we go. At the associate level, we have Irene Oujo, who is the executive director of the Hispanic Center that houses Latino Promise-HACER programs at Fairleigh Dickinson University in New Jersey. We have Vionex Martí, who's the interim director at the Institute of Interdisciplinary Research at the University of Puerto Rico, Calle in Puerto Rico. We have Janice Bush, who's department chair of Integrative Biology, representing the MS in Environmental Science at the University of Texas at San Antonio in Texas. We have at our community-based organization, Jermaine Peña, manager post-secondary programs at Esperanza Inc. in Ohio. So we have a wonderful panel here that we are going to have a wonderful conversation with. And so with that, let's get started. We do have Vionex will join us as soon as she can. We'll be having some technical difficulties, so but we'll welcome her as she arrives. So let's get started. First, we learned from all of you that your programs were doing a lot of things. We're doing a lot of great work with students. But for today's audience, if you could highlight one thing your program is doing to increase Latino student success, what would it be? And so I'm going to start at the associate level for Irene.
Thank you, Adriana, and thank you everyone for coming today. It's such a pleasure to be here. If we could highlight the one thing we're doing, then I would definitely say what it would be the inclusion of family members and other community members when we're talking about college and making sure that our students are successful. It's really about taking that personalized approach. You know, what is it that the student wants? What is it the student is looking for? And not just the student himself or herself, but also their extended family and that community. I think it's really important that we do that. If we think about education in that way, you know, the net that we cast in order to help students, you know, achieve their academic dreams just becomes so much wider. Just like what happens when you educate one person in a family, you know, there's such a wonderful ripple effect. I have these positive things that continue to occur. So I think it's that personalized approach to education, really getting to know students and understand where they're coming from, what it is that they're looking to do, and, you know, really thinking about how we can connect them to other people within our network. I think that's really important.
Thank you. And then, yes, family connection is a piece to really build that sense of belonging for students as well, and helping them feel seen and heard. So what about for you, Janice?
Yeah, so we began by training all of our staff and helping our faculty be involved in holistic mentoring of our students. And what we've moved to now, so I think the thing that's most important for our program right now is to work with our external partners and help our external partners who may not have experience working with underrepresented minorities and Latino students, the barriers that exist for them and how they can help those students overcome those barriers. For example, they may not understand the imposter syndrome or familial ties. And so what we are trying to do now is to focus on those individuals outside that also mentor our students.
Thank you, Janice. Really about those connections, the many ways, many relationships students are having at our institutions. And Janice, Jermaine, from the community-based organization perspective, can you share what would be the one thing that you'd want our audience to know about how you're increasing Latino student success?
Absolutely. And I would like to start off by thanking you for the opportunity to be here and sharing this space with fellow individuals who are doing excellent work. To me, it is definitely an honor to be here today. And if I had to highlight one element or a few of them, I would definitely point out to our umbrella of services and the holistic approach of providing support to our students that we have, knowing that one size doesn't necessarily fit all. So we really take a lot of pride in having case management or advising sessions with our students to really understand where they are, really understand what their needs are, and then essentially just build a plan to tackle them progressively. Understanding that many of our students could be coming in from Latin America, others could be born and raised in the US. Language can be definitely something that has been a challenge for many of them. So really understanding them and meeting them where they are, as it was mentioned before, it's something that I really think makes a big difference, in addition to guiding them out of maybe sometimes confusion or feeling overwhelmed, and really providing the support and the information needed to push them towards that academic success.
Thank you so much, Jermaine, and sharing from that perspective of all the things that you're offering and your post-secondary programs. Again, thank you all for sharing so much about those one things. I know you do so much and it's hard to narrow it down, so thank you for that. And we heard so much from you all, and one of the key things too, if we talked about examples of Excelencia and this evidence-based practices, one of the things we learned from you all is about your stories. The compelling element of your stories are those evidence of effectiveness that you shared. So I'd like to have you guys summarize, what are the kind of evidence and data that you're using to show your program is positively impacting Latino students? And so I'll kind of go back around in the reverse. So Jermaine, I'll swing back to you if you can share some of the evidence and the data that you all have about your success.
Absolutely. And that's something that I take a lot of pride in, because the National Student Clearinghouse provides us with data reports on our students. And this past year, the retention and persistence rate was at 99%, which is significantly higher than that of the national average. And our graduation rates for college students at Esperanza, it's of 90%. And that is something that I am like super proud about, something that I have to just share every time I get the opportunity. But beyond all of that, really recognizing the hard work of the students that they're putting in beyond our services and the support that we provide. And it's just so important to know that every step, going back to the initial question, providing the different support services, providing those different elements of intervention, really, to make sure that the students receive the information, the resources, the connection. You need to go to these offices. If we need to arrange a phone through a phone call, arrange a meeting so that the student knows where to go and who to speak with, that really breaks barriers. And it's something that we understand ultimately really impacts the Latino student success.
And then let's go back around. So then Janice, how would you like to share about some of that evidence and data that you shared?
Yeah, so we look at dashboards that tell us about retention and graduation rates, time to graduation. So those traditional things, but what we're trying to move into is to better understand what are we doing that is increasing retention rates. And so to do this, we use focus groups. So we bring students and have a series of questions and talk about the different things they've experienced and how that's impacted their ability to stay in school or to be successful. And then from there, we may go to one-on-one interviews to further dive into those things. And it's hard for me because I'm a quantitative person by training. And so a lot of these are qualitative. And we have actually hired someone in our department that is a higher education specialist rather than an environmental scientist to help us build good survey instruments to better understand what are the things that we're doing that is increasing student success, and then we can continue to hone those and add other things. So we're trying to expand it from just the typical metrics of student retention and so forth.
Thank you, Janice, for sharing again both sides of what you're looking at for that evidence. So Irene, why don't you then take us on at the associate level and there at Latino Promise-HACER. How is evidence of effectiveness working for you all to share the impact to your Latino students?
Sure. Similar to what Jermaine and Janice have said, we do look at graduation rates. Here in New Jersey, we're about twice the rate of graduation rate at the associate level, around 40% for our students. And then the time to graduation is also just over 2 years, which is significantly shorter. But we look at what the short-term goal is and then what the long-term goal is. And so we're looking at how many students are we helping to move beyond that associate's degree. If they're not interested in anything beyond the associate's degree, what is it they are interested in doing? And so we're making those connections, and very similar to what Jermaine said as well, we take a close look at what are some of the challenges that students are facing, and what are the interventions that we put in place so that we can help students get to where they need to be. So like interventions might be bilingual workshops for, academic support or financial aid. It could be, and, those would include the students and then any of whoever they consider to be in their support system. It could be a family member, it could be anyone. And we also look at what are some of the emotional and mental health workshops that we can also provide to help them be successful. And for us, that's really important. And then last but not least, but what we also do is really think about how can we expose students to, areas of academics and professional, fields that they're interested in, and helping them kind of identify what are some internships that you think about, maybe some volunteerism positions that you could think about, and really, from the very beginning, think about how they can expand their resume and how they can present their best selves. And these are some of the things that we use. So of course, that we use the data like graduation rates and time to graduation, but there are lots of other things that we're looking at as well to determine success.
Thank you, Irene, and thank you, everyone, to talk about those evidence of effectiveness. I'd like to bring in Vio next from the baccalaureate level. We'd introduced her at the beginning, so glad to have her voice join this conversation because I know they are having some very impressive impact at the Institute of Interdisciplinary Research. So Vio next, please welcome, and please share with us some of your evidence of effectiveness.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, some of our evidences are, we measure two things. One is graduation rates. Right now we have doubled the graduation rates from other students. And the other one is the students that go on to pursue high degrees like PhDs or master's degrees. And we, from our participants, almost 90% of them, they want to go to graduate school, but of them, 85%, almost everybody can get to is accepted to graduate school. So those are big numbers compared to other programs. And because of that, we have right now an NIH program funding is called METAS. And what we do is that we are trying to measure if these numbers are not related to self-selection, because we have great students. So in this program, we provide coaching and other scientific methods to see. And we already published one article. The next one is coming this summer to see that, because we are joining students, poor students, first generation students, all Latinos. So we'll see about that. But so far, results are huge.
Yes, thank you, Vio next. And we remember for some of the things that you shared. Before I have via next, we can hear a little bit more too about your program. Before we do that, I just want to let folks know that we do have a lot more of their evidence of effectiveness in our growing What Works database, as well as in the 2022 compendium. So there's an opportunity for you to hear even more from our programs if you were piqued about that evidence of effectiveness. And Vio, next, since you started with some of those results and we got to hear from other programs, I wanted to give you a chance to, for our audience, we know you're doing a lot at the Institute. So if you could share, what is one thing for our audience that you think is making that difference for your Latino student success?
Well, I think it's our very comprehensive, holistic model. We provide opportunities for students to go to do research, but we also provide them with coaching, mentoring, professional development. And because we are an undergraduate institutions and you know that we don't have so much faculty with enough time to do research, what we do is that we focus in supporting the faculty because we need those mentors. And then we have collaborations across the from the US or from the diaspora to provide more opportunities for them to do research. So that's the main thing.
Yeah, thank you, Vio. Next, I'm going to ask you and Jermaine this question about, we know that launching a program, building it, getting up off the ground, and then looking at sustaining it comes with, challenges, but it comes with successes, and it can be really rewarding. So I'd like to ask you both, what were some of the challenges you encountered along the way, and how did you overcome them? So we'll give Via next a pause here, and I'll pivot back to Jermaine and have Jermaine answer.
Absolutely, thank you. So I would probably say that being a nonprofit, the first thing that comes to mind, it's funding. We have to fundraise dollars to provide scholarships each year. And that is, it's a challenge. And it's also something that I take a lot of pride in because this year we're celebrating our 40th anniversary and we're going to, tirar la casa por la ventana or throw a big party. And as part of that, I reflect that, ever since our inception, we have been able to impact about more than 200 students because each year we award about 100 scholarships. And over this period of time, we have been able to award $2 million in scholarship dollars, being a small nonprofit. And it's something that I reflect on and I take a lot of pride in because we know that every single dollar has been impacting the success of our students. However, another key element I know that has really been directly related to our success, it's the commitment to innovation, knowing that we are always evolving and really seeking to continuously improve everything that we do. So we are constantly listening to our students while also being flexible to pivot as we survey students every session and every semester. And as we collect their feedback, of course, we are really looking to address their needs, really looking to connect with students on a one-on-one basis, as I mentioned before, but even more so depending on the continuous comments that they come up with in terms of the different situations that they may be going through. So a key element to our success, I definitely think it's innovation and that ability to pivot and to address the needs of our students as we hear, as we learn from them.
Thank you so much. And Vio, next, how about for you?
For us, it's the same, is funding. But what we do is that each challenge has been an opportunity for creating things. For example, the Antonia Pantoja's network allows us to have faculty from the US that they have funds and they can come into our institute to do their research. So we have that. Also, we just focus in evidence. And once we go from door to door with those results, we ask for funding for proposals. So we combine sending proposals to asking for other support money and seed money. So, and the other thing is collaborations. Once you have collaborations, supporters, we can go through difficult times. And in our case, we are getting bigger every time. But that's the thing, is that you have to have those numbers, those collaborators, and the support from your researchers. Without them, in our case, it will be impossible.
Well, thank you all both for sharing that, even with the limited resources, that you had innovation, you had collaboration, you were listening to students and really, pushing forward to help make your programs be successful for students and have this sustainable effort. So I really appreciate you all sharing. I mean, I think the funding in this space can always be a challenge, but I appreciate all the ways that you are bringing in ways that you have been successful and things that have made the difference. So thank you for that. And I think that we can bring us all in a conversation when we talk about sustainability, because you guys were able to demonstrate, you guys have been around for a while, you were able to demonstrate that even with the resources, limited resources, you're making a way and having a positive impact, which many folks want to know, how does that happen? How did you get there? And we know it's ongoing, but if you can share a little bit about your approaches to that sustainability, what are some of the components of your work and your effort that you think really are helping you to sustain your work? And if you can, of those things, what might others be able to learn and do at their campuses from you? So let me jump back. I'm just going to go by video because I lost track of where I was. But so I'm going to go next on my little square to Janice. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so I'm going to dovetail a little bit from BNX, what she was saying about these partnerships and how important they are for sustainability for our program. And some of those partnerships are internal to the university. So partnering with our graduate school here that, created this called the VIP program, helps us accelerate the admission of our bachelor's students into the program without having as many hoops to jump through. And that's really been beneficial for us. And especially since, we're a Hispanic serving institution. So we have a great population to recruit from there, but then also external partnerships and identifying potential partners in your community, whether it be local, state, or federal agencies, aligning them with your mission and vision. And in some cases, they are already in line with your mission. And in some cases, you need to educate them a little bit about what your mission is and see if they're game to that. And so that's has really helped us sustain it, even during lean years, budgetarily speaking, or what have you. And so we have an army of folks that are part of this process. And with that, it really helps us be very intentional and sustain the program.
Thanks, Janice. Sound like that the group committed to cause, what I say at Excelencia, that those committed to cause. It sounds like you've got some of those folks who are helping out. So moving along on the camera screen on my end, Irene, what about for you?
Sure. We're fortunate here at Fairleigh Dickinson that the university and the administrators, they've really made a conscious effort to support our students in lots of different ways. I mean, the first is financial aid to financial support. So every single Latino Promise-HACER student receives a significant grant that supports students and helps them to afford, a college education. Additionally, I think that the university is very intentional in terms of hiring faculty and staff who are bilingual, English and Spanish, of course, and bicultural, and so, in terms of faculty, we have faculty in math, English, business, STEM, who are bilingual, and that really helps to allow students to see themselves in these fields. In terms of student support, we have bilingual staff in financial aid, career development, admissions, student advising, counseling. But the one thing I know that's not easy for every institution. It takes that's taken a long time. But the one thing that I think is very replicable is our college knowledge workshops. It's run by a woman in our team who is amazing, and she really works with families. And so it's at least 2-3 times a semester where families are invited, and they're invited and they get a chance to network together. And we work with the families to say, okay, so how are you supporting your student? Because oftentimes it's a completely different culture. They may have gone to college in their home countries, perhaps not. Oftentimes they haven't experienced what higher education is like here in the United States. And so when, they're just unfamiliar. It's not that they don't want to help their student, it's that they're unfamiliar, and having someone to talk to about it and really get some great tips, and then having other parents who are in a very similar situation connect, it helps them to really understand, first of all, I'm not alone. I have support for me, so I can help my son or daughter, and really, help them to be successful. And I think that's the one thing. It's not very costly, but it's a matter of having a space, being able to reach out to families, and then having them come in and create that space for them. And I think also if you can't do it in person, perhaps you can do it virtually as well. So that's something that for us has proven to be priceless.
Thank you, Irene. And I thank you for sharing about the institutional investment, but also that familiar, the bilingual biculturalism, and that intentionality in being and serving the Latino students, from that identity perspective. And so I'm going to come to Jermaine and here, because I know you guys have the comprehensive effort as well. So are there things that you think have sustained your effort, and there are things that other nonprofits could replicate?
Absolutely. And there are many things. We've seized the opportunity to expand our partnerships, as it was mentioned before by my colleagues here. The opportunity to expand our partnerships with higher education institutions and many others really has made a significant impact in our growth, and also the impact we are able to have in our community, particularly our student population. And it is something that I also take a lot of pride in, because right now we have a partnership with one of the most prestigious institutions in the Midwest, Case Western Reserve University, and we're currently on our 3rd consecutive year facilitating the Líderes Avanzando program there, which is a college retention program for freshmen and sophomore students. And this is something that can also be replicated at other institutions, and we're really looking forward to expanding those partnerships this year. And we're working on expanding them as well. In addition to that, I think it's also very important to provide a framework of support with a culturally relevant component, as also Irene alluded to earlier. It is extremely important to understand that there are many different elements of diversity within the Latino community that we have to be able to understand, acknowledge, and address accordingly. So definitely making sure that the individuals who are in the front line are able to connect with students authentically, to ensure that the students really build that rapport and that rapport with them to essentially function and do everything else that's required. Also leads me into my next point of being strategic in placing individuals who are very caring for students, who are passionate about our community, who express that in every single way. I feel like it's just so important to have individuals who connect with students on a very culturally relevant manner, but also authentically, to ensure that the students not only hear the talk, but also are willing to follow into the footsteps of these individuals because of that relationship that has been able to be built.
Thank you so much. And then Vio, next we'll come to you again. I mean, you mentioned some of the things that have maybe been helping you be successful and sustaining your program. So what are some of, some others, and what do you think others could learn from and do at their campuses?
Well, other thing that is important is that your mission has to be very aligned with the other departments, academic departments' mission, because in one of the things that help us to sustain our work is that we like identify gaps in services at our institution, and we cover them. For example, something basic as we are a very small undergraduate institution, and we didn't have, for example, a post-award office. So we started because our mission is to assist researchers, we started doing that work, the post-award, supporting them, and now we are basically the post-award unit. So we have like two things to do here. One thing is our programmatic efforts, and the other thing is that post-award. But because of that, we are able to have, for example, negotiations for recovering indirect costs towards the Instituto, and because we are now necessary, it's very difficult to not sustain us. So you have to be like our colleagues said, very strategic in what you do, and just make sure, if you're a program and not an academic department, make sure that you work hand in hand with them, because you need to support them to be able to have the support for your institute. So that is one thing that we also have in our perspective.
Thank you, VNX. It sounds like the work being, very much needed. And so then again, once people have come to know the work and rely on the work, then that it's granted it's some permanence there in the effort. So that's great to hear at the Institute and in Puerto Rico. So I'm going to go back to, there was a point that Irene mentioned about institutional investments. I didn't want to glaze over that, because that seemed to be a key piece that you were sharing for the audience. It made me think of, for Excelencia, when we hone in, we say intentionality and intentionally serving Latino students. We look at, are you knowing who your Latino students are, understanding those needs, and meeting those needs, and then measuring, is it working? And some of that has to come with some investment, right? So with some guidance, some strategic placement, and for that intentionally serving Latino students. And that can come with some conversations about how to do that. We're not, Excelencia and a lot of the programs here are not about the exclusion of other students, but there is a level of knowing your students that intentionality is meant to dive into. So if I can come back to you, Irene, how have you balanced intentionally serving Latino students while serving all students in your environment?
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to achieve. And we've been working at this for a long time now. But I think what we've come to realize is that when you intentionally serve Latino students, it's good for all students, no matter what, so it's true. We have a Latino lens. Certainly here at the Hispanic Center, the university has invested in having staff and faculty who are bilingual, bicultural. But when you think more about it, you kind of zoom out a little bit and you think about, why is that important? Well, when you think about where students come from, what their linguistic and cultural repertoire is, what are their strengths? What are the things that they're really good at? What do they bring to the university? Why are they important to have in our classrooms? Well, then, we should be asking those questions of all of our groups of students, and thinking about, like, what is our curriculum? How are we looking at assignments, and how are we assessing our students? And are we really bringing out the best in them? Because that's what's important, focusing on their strengths. And of course, we all have limited resources. I mean, I wish I could shake a money tree and say, you know, these are all the things that I can do. And, you know, I wish we could do that, but we do have limited resources, and we want to think about how to best serve students. And so, you know, there's not a one size fits all. I think it's that recognition and that constant, you know, reflection, self-reflection. Okay, so we've come up with these different workshops, or we've looked at assessments in, you know, these areas. You know, we've looked at where are students succeeding and maybe not so much, you know, so where they're succeeding, why? You know, who are those students that are succeeding? Who are the ones that perhaps are not? How can we better support them? You know, are they missing important financially deadlines? Well, who are the ones who are missing important financially deadlines? Or are they first generation students? Well, what are we doing for our, you know, Latino community, our Latinx community in here at the university? How can we expand that? In what ways? What does that look like? So it's a constant reflection. You know, it's not like, oh, I've achieved a balance and I'm good now. You know what I mean? I mean, I wish it would work that way because it would make our jobs easier, but I think it would make our jobs also less fulfilling and not as interesting, right? Because we're constantly doing that self-reflection. Where can we do better? And so I think what has happened is that it's not a one size fits all. You know, Jermaine brought up that, you know, Latinos are not a homogeneous group, that we come from everywhere, and, you know, we're very, very diverse. And so, you know, I think that approach is really helpful because we're thinking about like, okay, so this is what we've done. Now, so we're constantly closing that loop. You know, where can we do better?
Yes, yeah. And I'm gonna get to your money tree question as well as one of the other things you picked up. But Janice, let's come to you about how you guys have been balancing that.
Yeah, and I'll just build off of what Irene said. You know, if you're going to be developing holistic mentoring in your department, it's going to help all students. If you're going to increase communication skills in your classroom, it's going to help all students. Leadership skills, it'll help all students. So that's one point I want to make, is that, you know, everyone can benefit from a lot of the interventions that we've done. I think the other point that Irene touched on too is making sure that our students that come in a cohort have a diverse cohort is important. And so by making sure that all students are going to be successful and having that diversity, by, you know, having interventions for Latino students or other minority serving institutes, then we're all going to benefit, or the whole cohort will benefit from that diversity. So I think it's a balancing act to a certain degree, but everybody benefits from the intentionality.
I love that. And you know, I love that it's everyone's going to benefit, but you have to do that level of intentionality and to know that there are things that you can build out. And there are a lot of other things too that, you know, we've heard across you all talking about the assets that Latino students are bringing to your campuses and to our communities. So I really appreciate what you guys have shared up until this point. Hope we can dive some more into that. But there was a money tree comment. So I have a money tree question for you guys. So I'm going to use that analogy. I had magic wand, but I like if you could shake the money tree and kind of make that money available to your programs, and you receive this new infusion of funding, where would you invest it in your program? And so I'm going to come the opposite end on my screen and go back down to VioNext on my right hand side. VioNext, we'll start with you. So if you received a new infusion of funding, where would you invest it first?
Well, I will invest it in something maybe linked to the previous question. In here, everybody is a Latino student, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a diversity issue. Because our diversity is different, for example, or mostly based on socioeconomic status. So I will provide more resources for our actual programs towards those students, first generation, poor, you know, Puerto Rico, 48% of the population is under the poverty line. So we have more than 70% of our students receive Pell Grants. So those are our targets. They are brilliant. They deserve the opportunity. So I will definitely strengthen our programs for that population. And the other thing is that everybody like NIH or all the agencies and foundations, they provide you with the support for programs, but not for the administrative people. And that's one of the issues when you have budget costs at our universities, like everybody is having. So maybe that doesn't seem something that some funders will love to do, but it's necessary because we need it. So one of the other parts will go definitely to that.
Thank you. Come back, Jermaine, and then I'll come to Janice to add some more. So Jermaine,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Jermaine.
Thank you. I'm sorry. So I think that because of our financial limitations, I really would, I could sit here and expand on these questions the entire afternoon, but just to limit it down to three, I would probably say the first thing I would love to do is replicate our programming to higher education institutions and other community-based organizations across the state and across the country, to something we have been able to figure out, and it's working. And I think that beyond like really trying to impose a particular style, we're really trying to understand more from the student. And something that I think it's very relevant, it's that every high school graduating class that comes into college brings in their own personality. And it's like we have to get to understand where they are. And just like we do that, we're constantly learning how to better serve our students. So definitely being able to do that replication of services across the state and the nation would be something that I would love to. In addition to that, I would also love to develop some sort of curriculum for juniors and seniors to get them to connect to better salaries and better employment opportunities. I think that through elevating the economic development of our community, we are also elevating their buying power, and so many other different elements just kind of like follow through as a domino effect that really would continue to impact generations to come. And lastly, I think that it would be ideal if we could develop more mental health services that have a cultural lens, more individuals who speak the language, who understand the different cultures, and who can empathize with individuals on that level just a little bit more, because I know that we have wonderful providers, but not many speak the language, particularly in the region where I'm at. So definitely providing that at no cost or very minimal cost would be something I would love to do.
So Jermaine has a real good solid plan there. Irene, since you started us off on this question, I'm going to go with Janice and have Janice close us out.
Yeah, so I'll make it fast because it's easy, right? For me, I would invest in more paid internships for our students, because that increases engagement, which increases student success. And then the second thing, I would invest in workshops for our faculty and other external mentors to help them be better mentors to Latino students. So that's where I would spend my money.
Yeah, thank you all so much. I mean, I could be here all day talking with y'all, and I hope our colleagues who are joining us feel the same way, because this has just been such a rich conversation. I want to get to some of their questions. I think what we've what we've heard is that we've got some programs here are really listening to students and families. They are being innovative in how they are finding resources, investing those resources, and really changing some campus mindsets about this work. So thank you, panelists, for answering all of my questions. And we're going to go to some of our audience questions. We also had folks send some in advance, and then one of them matches one that also came up in the Q&A. So I'm going to paraphrase both of those a little bit to get at this question, because it did come up in the conversation about the diversity of Latino student population. We know that Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, Latina we're not a monolithic community. And so that among Hispanic and Latino students, there can be more specific needs, like for students who are differently able, students who are undocumented. If anyone can speak to what are some of those supports you have had to build for students who are not documented, et cetera, in your communities. And, yeah, just come off mute and start answering. I saw Jermaine, and then I think I saw Irene.
So thank you. I think that is such a great question. I think one of the biggest passions that we have within post-secondary at Esperanza, it's that of undocumented students. Because of, I would probably say once again, our geographic location, we may not have the most progressive political system, and that it's reflected on the support that undocumented students receive at the institution level. And it has been a big challenge, but not impossible. I think that if there's a will, there's a way. Finding different resources within the state, within the county, within the city, to ensure that these students are able to receive the best support, the most resources as possible, so they can get as close as they can to that graduation day. It's really what we're doing. And I would love to expand more, but I know that we don't have all the time in the world. But I would love to also mention, before I pass it on to Irene, that if anyone is interested in learning just a little bit more about the work that we're doing and the different initiatives that we have at Esperanza, they can definitely feel free to connect with me, and I can expand for a very long time on all of those.
Irene?
Sure. So what we've done here, we're lucky in the state of New Jersey that the state, not to the federal level, but the state does offer support for undocumented students. It's about really getting the word out and helping students and families understand how that occurs. So we've been able to partner with, school districts and other community leaders. And so we can do, presentations, bilingual presentations, and saying, this is a safe space. It's okay to say, I don't, no tengo papeles, I'm not, I don't have documentation, I'm undocumented. Here at the university, once you get over the financial aid hurdle, undocumented students are like any other student, and no one ever says, or do you have, are you documented or not? It doesn't matter. They're in our classrooms and they deserve the same amount of love and respect as everyone else. So what I mean to say is really that it's just that financial aid part, and really getting them through that and helping them to understand this is what you need to do, and walking them through every step of the way. And so once they're there, that's fine. We offer that kind of support, and we dig into the community surrounding our campuses.
Janice, are we next?
Yes, in our case, it's just providing other support, like, for example, peer mentoring and coaching goes towards those students in need. So we focus on identifying them and providing them with more resources, especially first generation students.
And Janice, I don't know if you had anything, especially any different lens to the student populations or anything.
I will say that, our university is so intentional that we have, special offices at the university level. So I think my role, as the person that's in charge of this master's program, is making sure that the students know about those resources and how to get to them. And then that's something we do in our opening Welcome to Graduate School seminar, is they have to do searches and find about all the resources on campus. But because we are a Hispanic serving institution, a lot of that is at the university level. So it's actually a really a great environment to be in.
Thank you. We had a question about, staff to student ratios. So I think there's a sense of trying to get a sense of the size of your programs, which I don't know that we quite got into in the conversation. So Janice, I think you're still unmuted. So if you can kind of give a sense of the staff to student ratio, the size of the program you have at the MS Environmental Science.
Right. So we have about 60 students currently in the program. We have about 6 faculty that directly serve those students, although you might have, some other classes from outside. And that's actually a little high for a graduate program. If you would think each professor had 10 graduate students. So it's a little bit high. We are trying to work on that. But we do have students that come with different intentions, right? Some are full-time students and are just coming in for evening classes to be promoted at work. So they don't require as much attention as what I'm referring to there. And we have really, I would say 1.5 staff person for that, which it's tight, but we did experience some layoffs during the COVID and those haven't all come back.
Irene?
So we have about 150 Latino Promise-HACER students. We have about, I haven't counted, that's a really good question. About 25, I would think, faculty members, and some that includes adjuncts, full-time, and ESL instructors. And in terms of staff members, I think it's about 15 staff members, probably more, because I'm probably missing some of the individuals in some of the support staff, but that's a really good question. And next time I'll have a more accurate answer, but that's my guesstimate.
I think people are getting at scale and replicability, trying to understand. So, and Jermina is a little bit different because I know that Esperanza Inc. is an all-encompassing nonprofit, but if you could kind of do the post-secondary programs, what those numbers might be, and then we'll close out with VONX.
Absolutely. So we serve each year roughly about 200 and 300 students, and we typically have a team of 3. We currently have a team of 2. We're looking to hire 2 more individuals, and essentially we divide our group of students by cohorts, and really identifying and ways to divide and conquer, ways to connect with students on a one-on-one level, ways to process the different situations that the students may be going through, providing the support, connecting them through the referrals and whatnot. So really we're looking down to regularly 50 students to 1 or 100 students to 1.
Okay, thank you.
And in our case, we have right now like 130 students, and we are 5 here. But since we work with the departments, there are other like 20 mentors, researchers at the departmental level. So, but in here we are 5 people.
Well, thank you, panelists, so much. Thank you for all your answers, your great insights. Thank you to all of those who put questions in the Q&A. I think we got through the Q&A. I know there were probably many more in the chat. I know it was a lively chat. I apologize. I didn't even get a chance. And the panelists, we know that you might have been writing to panelists to say, yeah, I like that answer. We'll make sure we get that chat back to them. But I want to make sure we can respect everyone's time and close out. So those of you who sent questions ahead of time, Excelencia will try to make sure in some of our future programming that we have in 2023 and beyond that we incorporate some of your big burning questions, but we hope that we've answered some things about resources, collaborations, what working, and really seeing and hearing our Latino students so that we can better serve them. So with that, I'm going to close. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to hand it back over to Cynthia so she can highlight the ways you can stay engaged with us and close us out. Cynthia?
Hi, yeah, everyone. So you've heard from the 2022 examples of Excelencia, and if you'd like to also be considered for the 2023 cycle, that is opening up between February 1st through March 31st. So you can either submit a submission if you run a program, or if you know of a really great program, you can also submit nominations. In February and March, we're going to be hosting a Plática series. This is open for anyone who is interested. You don't have to submit a submission, or you don't have to intend to submit. Like, it's open for all who are interested. So registration for that will open once submissions go live. And finally, in August, that's when we will, so for those who participate in Examples of Excelencia's 2023 cycle, in August, we will be announcing the finalists and the programs to watch. But then in fall 2023, that's when we're going to be hosting our Celebración de Excelencia, and that's where the examples will be announced. And we also want to highlight and thank a few of our sponsors from 2022. Our Latino Student Success Champions were Bank of America, JP Morgan, Chase, Google, and Wells Fargo, along with these other amazing organizations that supported us. So thank you to them. And finally, thank you so much for attending today's webinar. If you are interested in learning more about these programs, along with all the programs that have been recognized in the past, don't forget to visit the Growing What Works database. There you can find information about the programs in more detail and their contact information. So that's where you can find all of the panels information if you're interested. But then if you have any additional questions, always feel free to email us at examples@excelencia.org. And finally, we just thank you for being here today and joining us in this important conversation of what works and is having an impact on Latino student success. We hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Bye.